Not everyone or not everything can be known, but not everything is unknown. Hello, it's January 2024, and in my recent videos I've either touched up on or even discussed, for example, as descriptives, the spiritual side of life and the woo side of life, and how these sides of life may or do contribute to injustice and tyranny. And I've highlighted as a descriptive, the top 3 belief systems, religions that is worldwide. But I'm going to be discussing a belief system, a religion that is right in everyone's face and goes unnoticed and has impacted these traditional religions and belief systems greatly. And what I'm talking about is something called Scientism. And Scientism has impacted, again, as a descriptive, these traditional belief systems and religions as they incorporate or attempt to incorporate what Scientism states. In Scientism, they don't even state their position on anything as absolute, but rather as theory. But the common person accepts what they say as factual, even omitting, in one way or another, that in the title of all these statements that they claim, they say the theory of fill in the blank. And they just completely omit that. And people automatically assume that someone in a position of authority in, say, Scientism is being truthful and factual and everything. That somebody had looked into it, somebody had figured something out, which they even say they don't have a clue. Now, this Scientism impacts, for example, the justice system, politics, and every other profession. I'm going to highlight here for a moment the justice system and part of the injustices that occur. We see, for example, the liberal arts, the theoretical pseudoscience of psychology playing a big role, being accepted, for example, in the courts as a standard to, for example, convict somebody, or if they're not sentenced to prison, they're sentenced to a mental institution, which is worse than going to prison. And I've highlighted this in other videos, but it doesn't even have to be at that level with the courts. For example, you could have someone in any position of authority, whether it be a police officer or a government official, who had studied this liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology to some degree, or some variant of it. And when they're, for example, imposing their opinion or their theory or whatever, say, for example, on an individual, everyone that knows this individual will think, wow, this person had studied this theoretical pseudoscience and they must know what they're talking about, and accept that. For example, when you look at profiling an individual and how these people are making uninformed conclusions based on a limited knowledge base, and then their default when they're wrong, which is more times than not, is, well, I just shared my opinion, so it's just an opinion. Up until that point, when they're proven wrong, it's, well, yeah, this is absolute, and they can justify it all they want. At the end of the day, it's just an opinion, or an alleged opinion. Now, setting aside there's biases and agendas, we have injustice, we have tyranny. And then when you have, say, for example, someone in a political position, studied something to that effect, maybe more with a greater social topic, and they're making, again, uninformed conclusions based on limited knowledge bases, and then making laws or rules or stuff, we have injustice, we have tyranny. We even see this, for example, in the medical profession. Now, the medical profession itself is more absolute, because if you, say, for example, have a broken bone, or there's something physically wrong that could be repaired or fixed or whatever, you can see it, you can touch it, you can explain it. But then we also have pseudosciences that have been blended in with all that. And for example, we see this over the past several years, how pseudosciences had made all these sensational claims and really tried to impose whatever on everyone. And a lot of people said no. And some people paid the price. So this belief system, religion of scientism, impacts every aspect of everyone's life, and even just everyday life. It doesn't even have to be on a topic of anything significant. It could be someone's identity. Someone identifies, we all create, say, for example, our identity, for example, in public, and a lot of people are using parts of scientism to create their identity based on falsehoods. I've talked about how you have one traditional older religion that was originally created to create a super religion, and then that was rewritten through translation, for example, to elevate a certain group of people to be something more in the spiritual side of life. And then you have another religion that will attach themselves to that. Then you have another religion coming along, taking from both those to create a whole new one, claiming to be, well, yeah, this is all divinely inspired and everything else. And then all three are incorporating scientism into their belief system, their religion, which is all scientism being nonsense, blind faith. And it's interesting how people will say, well, and I'm not for or against religions or belief systems or their scriptures. I'm approaching this from a neutral perspective. But you have, say, for example, atheists who would say, well, yeah, these people, they're relying on books written by someone who they've never met a long time ago and all this other stuff. But yet they do the same thing. They haven't done any of the studies themselves. They have a limited knowledge base, if any, on a topic, but they'll accept it on blind faith, just like any other religion or belief system. And then they'll start to create a new religion or belief system from that, which is just a tangent from scientism. They'll incorporate stuff like alleged multiple dimensions and multiple universes and all this other nonsense, and a whole new tangents created, and people fall because this, it makes them feel good. And I've talked over the years, the past decade or more, about feel good and people wanting to feel good and needing feel good, something that's comforting, something that clicks. You don't have to give too much thought But like with any other religion or belief system, when you challenge somebody who accepts scientism, and they might not even know it, and you start to ask some very fundamental questions about what they're saying, then they just start talking in circles. And they get into logical fallacies, something else I've highlighted recently as well. So this whole religion, belief system of scientism ties in directly with injustice and tyranny, as well as impacting, as a descriptive, established religions and belief systems that are more traditional, as a descriptive. So, but the real concern is when scientism contributes to injustice and tyranny. And as I've said, how someone can be profiled incorrectly, and assumptions are made, and then the common person takes that statement or statements from someone they deem as perceived authority as, well, yeah, that's true. And you'll never shake that, because people tend to attach themselves to the first thing they hear, and usually could be that it's untrue. And it doesn't matter how much independent evidence that could be presented that say, hey, listen, this is, you got to reevaluate this. People won't listen. And in one of my recent videos, I talked about, for example, how a lot of it's ego. People don't want to admit that they've been duped. It's, like, I'm too smart for that. People in today's world, most people think that they're smarter than they actually are. And they think that this cult of scientism is smarter than what they actually are. But if you really want to challenge somebody who just defaults and say, oh, it's science. Well, what's science? Like, people, yeah, well, science figured it out. Science had figured out, somebody had figured out in science, that somebody in the liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology has concluded something about an individual, profiling them, and they're completely wrong. A lot of times, people who do follow scientism and they're proven wrong, they either completely avoid it, like any belief system or religion, the truths, or they at best may say in very, very fine print, we don't know, we're wrong, whatever. But this whole thing with scientism as a belief system that has even infiltrated the atheist belief system, and that is a belief system. And they have their own mantras and everything else, and why they're atheists, that's a whole different topic of discussion. But scientism is a contributing factor to injustice and tyranny. Even on the street, for example, you may have, and I'm just using this as an example, not for or against, it's a neutral position here, but when you have even, say, a police officer who may have studied some form of liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, or some tangent of it, and they're interacting with someone, in their mind, whatever they're concluding, right or wrong, it has to be right. And at the end of the day, no matter what authoritative position that someone's in who follows scientism, they default and say, oh, it was just my opinion. And then they're protected from any mistakes or, as an extreme example, horrors that may have come from their actions or their words. So I really just wanted to, again, take a neutral position and highlight a belief system, a religion, that's in everyone's faces today. And try to give some more insight. And this could circle back to, for example, the spiritual and the woo side of life, and how that side of our existence uses scientism for example, as a descriptive of their own agendas. I'm just going to close off by saying something that a lot of people are not going to feel good about, so trigger warning. You might have to find a safe space after this, but in the big picture of existence, the human species of creation is at the bottom of, as a descriptive, the food chain. And that's something that's really hard for people to accept, because that's why we have religions and belief systems and New Age and atheists, and they're trying to elevate the human species into something more that they're not, for comfort. And that is all false self-empowerment, false hope. And that false hope ties into, for example, something I've been highlighting for the past 3-4 years. This false hope of people who want to stop the tyranny by having large get-togethers. And people are starting to see, well, hang on a second, yeah, nothing has changed, nothing, things are still going on. And there's still groups out there who are holding up traffic, gluing themselves to the concrete and disrupting other people's lives. And you have to remember, most people, pretty much everyone in this world, your average person, all they want to do is live a peaceful and happy life, go to work, pay their bills, whatever, spend time with family, with friends, make good memories. And that's what most people everywhere around the world, doesn't matter what country, what religion, belief system, most people, that's all they want. It's the people above them, perceived above them, that are causing all this turmoil. And this ties into, as I've said in my previous videos, previous videos, how there's someone or something above them controlling all the strings. Anyway, I just wanted to give you some things to think about. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people say to me, when is it going to get easier? When you die.